Hello, everyone, and welcome to round 6 of the Green Invitational. And at the same time, we're going to be following the European Junior Teams Championships, which is being held at the moment in Thessaloniki, coming to its closing stages. So let's, Peter, I'm joined by Grandmaster Peter Wells.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Natasha. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And we're going to start actually with the under-12s. Where England is on top board. I think they're currently in 5th. They're in top board playing against the leaders, Turkey. So we'll pop into there first, then head. This is the plan, game plan. We'll then head to Wood Green, and then we will head in the Europeans. So let's have a look at. We'll go down the 4 boards.
Yep.
So we're black on 1, Soham Kumar. If I just click on that should do the trick, shouldn't
it? Yes, we need to go up a bit. Yeah, that's good.
Go. And I want this to be moved, not comments, really. Let me just see if I can arrange that. That's like that, isn't it? There we go. So shall we start? Can I flip the board easily? Flip through there. Flip board.
So are you going to flip it? We want it from Soham's point of view.
We're gonna have it from our point of view, and I'm going to turn off the computer as well.
You're going to turn off the engine?
Well, yeah, I can turn it back on if you want.
No, I'll have nothing to say. It's fine. No, I might be able to have something to say. Okay, so
you can have whatever you like.
No, let's take it away. I don't want the computer.
You don't?
No, I don't. No, I was only joking.
Go away, engine off.
Okay, so this looks at worst quite comfortable for black, and the last move, Queen b5. What I like about black's position is that white's e-pawn feels like it will be a target. If black's playing to win, I guess what he needs to do is avoid simply trading that for one of his own weaker pawns. After Queen b5, if white takes and then play something like Rook c6, I guess there will be a trade of pawns, but in that case, you can see black's rook's getting very active on the E and D files, and then it will be, white may even end up with 2 passed pawns on the queen side, but there's kind of a feeling that black could be very active, and that might be reasonably promising. Something like queen takes b5, rook takes, rook c6, rook takes e5, and then you have the possibility of maybe bringing both rooks to the 7th rank. I'm just thinking that could be white. It's important for black to rule out whether white has this sort of simple way of just trading pawns. It feels to me like a position like rook takes a6, rook d2 or something. And white can't challenge the rook because the knight would be lost. And that looks, black can have some fun here, I think. Bishop c5 is coming, the other rook to e2. And white may find that he's suddenly in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
One thing I think is worth saying is that when you look at these junior tournaments, it's a very good idea much of the time to be pretty skeptical about the FIDE ratings.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm quite certain that this Turkish ball 1 is not 1497 strength. It's always a good idea to be cautious about them. And now after lockdown, it's sort of doubly, trebly so. There will be some players. There are clearly some players now in the UK, young players who are way, way ahead of their FIDE ratings. And, they tend to, on some occasions, they've had quite a rough time FIDE rating-wise playing in these kind of events, which suggests that, to me, given that I'm certain our juniors are a little underrated on the whole, the opponents are often even more underrated. It's as simple as that. There's a serious problem with ratings catching up with strength.
There always has been with juniors, hasn't they? Whatever people do to try and adjust,
like
juniors improving. It's never enough.
Occasionally it sort of feels like an excuse. Everyone says my opponents were underrated, but actually you see the disparity between our own juniors' ratings and DCF gradings, and you sort of think, there must be something in this. And I've seen some strong players from Turkey, amongst other places, who, are sporting some not very exciting looking ratings. So, but
hi there. I am check this. That's Richard. He's echoing the point that Turkey are very underrated. The current leaders of the tournament, even though they're only the 9th seeds in the tournament. But this position looks nice for us, doesn't it?
Well, this is very nice. I think this is kind of what Soam needed to rule out when he chose queen b5. He needed to check that queen takes and rook c6 doesn't work for white, because then otherwise, you could find that you're exchanging white's weak pawn for one of your healthy ones. But I think here black's so active. My initial assessment seems even more right than I thought it was going to be. I think white's in real trouble here. So that's kind of good. So white needs to find some solution much less direct than this one. On the other hand, having played queen b5, Soam needs to keep looking out for the possibility that rook may come to c6, which wasn't, in the position before. But this is a very direct way of trying to. I think white may well be better off playing just rook e1 or something like that. Yeah. But then, who knows? There may be bishop b4 to try and deflect that rook. Then perhaps white can play queen takes b5 and rook e2, and then try to, have rook c6 in the pipeline rather than flick it in there immediately. I think, black is a bit better, but black needs to play quite precisely to prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go back and see the early part of any of these games, or should we do a quick survey and
maybe we just go through
survey for the moment? Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the second board.
Let's see board 2, which is
Max Pert. Now, the main thing I know about Max Pert at the moment is that I played him in the English Championships and rather embarrassingly blundered in the opening. And at one point I think I was -6 on the computer, something like that, which is not a small blunder. That's your big time. Should be no way back blunders.
Thanks, budget 1989. Thank you very much. Okay, so So did you manage to?
Well, I managed to reverse things considerably, and then, in keeping with the high standard of my play in the game, I basically agreed to draw in a position which was then winning. So the least.
I think I was commentating on that game as well.
Were you?
It does sound very
familiar. I was hoping as few people had seen it as possible, but there we are. Yeah, not my finest hour, and probably not Max's finest hour either, actually. Although it could have been a good hour.
Draw with the Grandmaster's pretty good.
Well, no, yeah, I suppose it was, but I just almost resigned actually at the point when I was -6, because he played so convincingly up to that point.
Yeah. So okay, here Max is in action against underrated Turkish player Atakolat, and Max is white.
Indeed.
We'll see what opening it was. If I can get e4, c5, Sicilian.
Okay, this is some kind of an accelerated dragon, but with white's knight already on c3, so there were no Maroczy bind possibilities. I don't know what to think here. I mean, my feeling is that black's pieces are quite nicely coordinated, and the bishop on a4 is slightly odd. On the other hand, on a3, it'll do a very good job of defending the queenside pawns. Sorry, on b3, I mean, it'll do a good job of shielding those queenside pawns. I don't know, what would Keith think about black's queenside minority here? Is 1 versus 3 is probably a bit too much, right?
Well, Keith, of course, always likes his kingside pawns.
Keith likes, he will like. I mean, black's got a lot of kingside pawns, including.
White does have a pass pawn, the c pawn.
Yeah, the c pawn's passed, but to be honest, for the foreseeable future, it looks to me like white's going to be concentrating on kind of consolidating rather than sending them forward, because they don't look. There's a passed pawn there, and you can imagine, if the pawn gets to c4 or something and it's still secure, that looks quite pleasant. But actually, as soon as you move that pawn, you give black squares. That's always the way with pawns. Whenever you move them, you give your opponent some squares. And for example, the d3 square could be handy for black if that pawn moves forward. Depends how fast it goes. I think white's going to be consolidating those pawns in the short term. Yeah. Okay, so it's also a question: how does it look? It's a good question. How does it look different without any rooks on the board? Because
Max is liking it without the rooks. So we'll see if he puts his other one.
I assume he has rook d1 in mind here, because giving that file only really makes sense if you're trying to play without rooks at all, I think. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah. So this is... my gut feeling is that black probably wants rooks on the board, partly because those, all these pawns bring open files, and that feels like a possible source of counterplay for black. But it's not so easy to prove that. My first hunch here would be to look at rook c8, and But, the knight isn't pinned against c2 because the bishop on a4 defends. I think the bishop on a4, it looks a bit clumsy at first sight, but from the point of view of the specific structure, might be not so badly placed. I find this one very hard to assess. I think there's a lot of...
I sort of feel like I would prefer to be white slightly, but...
Really? Yeah, I wasn't sure. My very first instinct was I might rather be black, but I'm
really,
backtracking from that. Your instinct was probably better. I mean, as black, I'd probably want to go rook c8, king f8 to e7, rook c7, and then see what I can do, kind of thing. The other thing I suppose black could do is look at rook c8 and try to trade those bishops with bishop c6. But then the e4 pawn is as weak as any of white's, and I don't think that would be dangerous for white.
Yeah.
No, it's probably fine. It's just a bit unusual. It looks a bit unusual to me. Interesting. There's lots. I think it's it's
if they were
material, but it's very unbalanced. There's a lot of play to come here, isn't there?
If they were to take the rooks off, so say you went rook takes rook and knight takes, then how does that?
Well, then you want to find a route in for black's knight or a way to get the black kingside pawns activated. So something like knight d5 looks natural to me after taking.
So takes knight d5, something like that.
You might be headed to f4, you might be headed to b4 in some circumstances, probably not for a while. Or you may simply be playing f5 to try and solidify that e-pawn and make it not reliant on your pieces to defend it and to gain a bit of space.
Yeah.
But none of this looks scary for white to me.
Yeah. So white would want to get the king out. And actually, you can't. It's hard to get the king out.
That may be true. You may have to go via e1 or something. And yeah, if you play... I mean, if white played knight e3, it's also not clear to me that change of structure would be so terrible. Although in a way... Does that make it harder or easier for black to make a pass pawn? It's not so obvious to me. You can see scenarios to make a pass pawn if white's f pawn is on e3 or if it stays on f2, but it's not. Neither of them. That structural change wouldn't be obviously disastrous, although it might weaken the other kingside pawns a little.
Yeah, and we do have the exchange of rooks in now.
Oh, we do. Okay, my hunch was that black maybe should have avoided that. I still think it's about equal, but in a very sort of unbalanced, dynamic sort of equal.
Because Max always has c4 that he can do.
So he has gone for the knight d5 move I suggested. I mean,
no, he hasn't. That's our move.
That's our move. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that can be met by c4, which would be very direct, I suppose. Probably it should be, actually. c4, and if the knight goes to f4 or something, then c5 is already very quick. So maybe knight d5, it looks tempting, but it may not be the best thing at this point.
Oh, here, and then it's even threatening c6.
Well, the threat, I think, is bishop d7, followed by queening the thing. If you just go c6, it may get blockaded quite easily. But if you go bishop d7, you are probably... Well, you're forcing black to go back with knight d5. And then you've clearly removed any point to black's knight maneuver anyway. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I suspect probably these are the sort of positions where I try to play too actively. It may be the knight comes to f4, white's knight then hops to e3 anyway. Maybe black's just better off with king f8 to e7 and getting the king into the battle. I'm pretty confident that Max isn't really worse in this endgame.
Yeah. Okay, so it's looking promising. Let's see board 3.
Yeah, perhaps.
Okay, so I'm going to flip the board again.
Right.
And so we have Zain Patel playing black here.
Was this a King's Indian?
Let's see what it was.
Feels like a King's Indian or something like that. It doesn't look like a particularly healthy
one.
No,
Uri Lopez.
Oh, well, there's a few lines of the Spanish which sort of basically turn into King's Indian. Let's have a look, because this is the Brea.
Yeah.
So they're following reasonably heavy theory down to move 15 or so, 16.
Wow. Yeah.
So can we just go to move 15, because it's quite an interesting thing. White's played b3, where the very main line is a4, but I think b3 is the sort of second most popular. And b3 is kind of about trying to play d5 and then having c4 to protect the d-pawn. And it's open to debate how much of a problem that is for black. But, to what extent you need to take countermeasures. But I think on the whole, black needs to take some kind of countermeasures. And after the way black played, bishop g7, d5, just h6, that feels a little bit slow. And if white consolidates those pawns in the middle, that does amount to a little bit of kind of tangible space.
So black should be challenging in the center.
Well, I mean, you can just play I think it's a bit passive, but you can, for example, play c6 just to stop d5. Or there are some moves which kind of prepare to play c6 when d5 happens. But bishop g7 isn't one of them, because now if d5, c6, then the d6 pawn will be on pre.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the problem, basically.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's quite useful to at least keep the possibility of challenging that pawn with c6. And bishop g7 doesn't do that. In a couple of moves later, you think when black goes knight b6, again, you think that might be some pressure. So move 17, you think that might be some pressure on white's center. But, okay, white went bishop d3. I think in these kind of positions, white can also play rook b1, which is a kind of clever way of using black's pieces on the b file to stop the counterplay as well. Rook b1 might be a nice move. But bishop d3 seems to have done the job fine as well. And I don't know, if black can't get pressure on those pawns, then you can easily see how his pieces might get a little bit, short of space, short of breath kind of thing.
Yeah.
Particularly now the knight's on the b file. If black's ever going to capture on c4 and then have c6, there's going to be dangers of those pieces piling up on the b file, causing some tactical accident as well.
Yeah, so black avoided c6.
Black avoided c6 because rook b1 would probably be quite nasty. But, here, again, it says the danger is simply that black isn't going to find enough space for his pieces. So bishop e3, queen d8. Yeah, I didn't like queen c7. That feels like that should be a square for a knight. And, okay, it's a good thing that if you've put a piece on a bad square, then you sort of don't have the pride. You're not too proud to move it back again. That's quite a good trait in a player, I think. But he's realised that that's not the right move, and now he wants to put a knight on that square instead.
Yeah.
But white is consequently a couple of tempi ahead, I think. So again, this doesn't look like a 1600 player playing with white to me.
No, I'm sure it's not.
Quite sophisticated manoeuvring going on. So white's aiming for c5, and black has decided, probably with a fairly heavy heart, that the only way to stop c5 is to put a knight there. And that may well be, not a ridiculous way to think, but white's showing some understanding of how to bring further pieces around to attack c5. So that knight g3 to f1 feels like a good move, because it's heading from a not very promising territory on the king side over to b3 to attack the c5 pawn, I think.
Yeah, so Zane redeploys the...
I mean, black can hope, perhaps, to get some counterplay with f5. But, if you compare it with King's Indians, as I inadvertently did at the beginning by thinking it was one, it doesn't... any counterplay on the king side doesn't feel very, very promising, because simply all the pieces are over on the queen side, black's as much as white's.
Yeah, okay.
e7, okay. Again, that's a nice move. White, that's probably white's worst minor piece, and he's considering trying to put it to a4 and c6. It all feels like some fairly high-level maneuver. Hello, that's a bit odd. Whoa. Really?
What?
I'm just wondering why knight takes c4 isn't a move.
Oh. Here.
It looked like it forked.
Knight takes c4, yes. Knight takes c4, here.
I don't understand that. Are we sure that... Oh, wait a minute. There's queen a4.
Queen a4. Forking. Very nice, yeah.
Forking the knight and the rook. And when the knight takes on b2...
Oh, gosh, what a shame. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, although it would actually be a bit of a shame for the game if white had allowed it and black hadn't seen it. But there's actually, as far as I can see, a very good reason not. So if the knight takes on b2, the queen takes on e8... And black's problem is twofold. One is that, threefold maybe. f7 is being hit. the knight on b2 is being hit, and bishop takes c5 is also a threat.
Yeah.
And there's no way. I don't think black can meet any two of those. Never mind all three.
No.
But that again, that's a very sophisticated little tactic for a 1600 player. I think that's a sign that we're looking at someone who's quite strikingly underrated, as the rest of the tournament suggests they are. That's a very nice little trick, because it's easy to think that if that's not there, if white can't play knight b3, it feels like the next step in white's plan isn't so obvious. This makes it a lot easier for white having that little tactic. That's a very important moment. Okay, so knight d7, and now
defends queen a3,
queen a3,
h5.
Okay.
5, knight b6.
Okay. Bishop a4. So now he's deciding that to make further progress, he needs to trade off this knight which defends c5 for a bishop which can't directly attack it, and that's not, again, a bad idea in principle. So he's going to put the bishop into c6, but he still needs to find his. Now he's stopping knight a4. So maybe if he defends c4 and then retreats the knight to b3, then he reckons possibly
c5 is going to.
c5 is really hard to defend.
Can't defend. Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry that we're focusing rather much here on the strong play of an opponent, but this is rather a model display of technique by white at the moment. So rook b8. I mean, black's got a grim position out of the opening, and he's doing what he can. He's making a knight d7. Sorry, he's making sensible enough defensive moves. So what's the best way to do this for white? To go.
I don't know whether he wants to already take.
I think he takes on b8, then the knight hitting the bishop means
he has taken on
d7. Yeah, that's very sensible and direct. From the point of view of attacking c5, that's very consistent. So he's just going to exchange off the pieces which can defend.
Well, black c5. Can throw in rook.
Yeah.
b2.
And may well do so. Oh, wait a minute. No, if black throws in rook takes b2, we can take on c8, can't we? And black's in danger of losing material. Yeah, because if black retreats, the rook will play bishop b7 and have two pieces for a rook.
Okay.
And otherwise, I think after bishop takes d7, black has to take back directly. And then white has a choice. They can either take on b8 and play knight b3, which looks to me possibly the cleanest, or just play knight b3 immediately. Yeah, no, I think white's done this really very well, actually. I'm quite impressed. After bishop takes d7, knight b3, I can't see really a good move for black at the moment.
Yeah, okay, so
I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I don't see a good way to.
Basically this c5.
Yeah, the c5 pawn's been the target for some move. Oh, wait a minute. Queen b6 holds it for the moment.
B6.
Because of the pin against b2.
Yeah.
And maybe if rook cb1, then queen b4 or something. I'm just sort of clutching at straws a little bit, trying to find a way for black to wriggle out.
Okay, he has thrown in actually rook b2.
Oh gosh. Okay, so bishop takes c8. What
let's see, bishop takes c8. And so we move the rook again. So we've got a choice, because we can go back to here as well.
Yeah, but then there's also knight b7 in the position, which could make the material disparity even worse.
Yeah.
Then black has to show something in order for it not to be a whole piece.
So rook b2.
To be honest, in this position, after bishop takes c8, knight b7 is kind of threatened anyway. So
bishop c8. Sorry, yeah. Here we go.
So maybe you try queen b6 or something, just to get rid of that fork.
Ah, okay, interesting. Queen b6.
But I don't see any obvious reason why white can't just go bishop b7 and keep the two pieces against a rook. So I hope he has an idea that I haven't spotted as black, because whilst, exchanging some pieces eases the congestion, I'm afraid part of it is simply there were fewer of them at the end. So that's not the ideal way to ease the congestion.
I sort of feel like the knight and bishop are...
They're a little bit clumsy, which is probably what he thought might be okay. But I'd be maybe after bishop c6, bishop b7, maybe black plays something like queen to b4.
Hi, Bagator.
Yeah, this makes some sense.
Also, white play bishop g5, then swing the queen to the king side for a change of tack.
Maybe. I think white's trying to get out with the loot kind of thing. But
yeah, take the pieces and go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But queen b4 here, Natasha, I'd not noticed till now. That gives a bit more hope because, if the queen is exchanged, you can take with the c pawn, and then a2 is quite hard
to defend. Better, isn't it? That's
a2 is hard to defend. There's a little bit of, but it could also be that white can play something very
knight c6.
Well, I was wondering about something as kind of cold-blooded as rook a1, just to hold the thing, and then c5 and push forward with a very passive rook. But okay, this may well be what black has to try.
Yes.
It's better than the other lines we saw. Black, maybe now is the moment for black to flick in his f5 counterplay and just try to, if you can take the bishop off that diagonal, suddenly you have bishop c5 and you have some perspective.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
This could be the best chance.
Have a look at the next one. So we've got Alp Madsman.
Very, very close to the end. Good job.
They've drawn. They've drawn.
Oh, they've drawn.
Against Alfred Soulier.
They've drawn for. We're still on looking at it from black's point of view, aren't we?
Let me look. Let me flip the board.
Yeah.
Now this
so
this one there.
A7.
The computer was liking it for. Oh, for white. No, white or black. I can't remember now.
It's very hard to imagine the computer liking it particularly for anybody. Why? Okay, the only idea I could see to try and win for white would be king.
So white is Alfred, right? White is Alfred playing up the board.
White is Alfred playing up the board, yeah.
Yes, that's what we have to say to orientate ourselves.
Okay, so if white queens the pawn, black takes it and takes on b6, and that's clearly game over. Yeah. It also appears to be if black plays something like black could also just play something like rook to the king side. And then if a8, you can play check, you can skewer
rook
and still take the queen. It's still game over, isn't it?
A8 queen. Check here.
Mm-hmm.
King here, say.
Check.
Have to come here, really.
And now it's absolutely inconceivable that the computer could have any reason for liking anybody. It's just a draw, isn't
it? Maybe it was a little bit earlier when we saw it.
Okay. No, this appears to be a dead draw, I should think, by a variety of methods.
Hi, Kevin. Watching at the same time as England cricket. Got to watch all the England things at the same time. Okay, yeah. So if we look at it, if we just go back to move 40 and just see sort of...
me to be completely dead draw. What's going on here? Okay, in a position like this, it looks on the face of it like white is a bit further advanced than black.
Yeah, although black does come straight away with this H pawn.
Well, yes, it's pretty marginal, and white needs to be slightly careful too, I guess.
Yeah, tricky these rook and pawn endings. E5, king c4. I don't think this is.
Pause a moment here. Can we just pause a sec? This is quite interesting. So what's black's idea? Is black pushing the e-pawn? Is black trying to go king f3 and make another dangerous pawn, or is he... For example, could white have considered king d5 instead of king c5 to have the sort of added advantage of attacking that e-pawn?
Yeah.
Then if black plays as in the game, you could meet king f3 with rook takes h3, king takes f2, and then take on e4. And I don't think black's immediately assaulting the the queenside pawns at that point. So that would be quite promising. And, if you're headed to c6, this route's as efficient. If you're headed to b6, okay, it's a bit slower. But if you're headed to b7, it's the same speed. So I just wonder if this would have made... Does this make black's job slightly harder?
Maybe. What if you go e3?
Well, yeah, that's another interesting question, whether you can create the 2-pass pawn. Okay, I think I better take that one before it queens.
And then
experience suggests to me you take those before. Okay, but now can I play rook g8 and just remove all black's pawns?
Rook g8, you can try.
And with your king that far away, I've got more hopes that I'm going to get somewhere with those 2 pawns against the rook. Because don't forget, the 2 pawns on the 6th win against a rook. So if I can get that...
Win, okay, yeah.
So if I can get that free. So, yeah, I'm going to take that one with check, whatever you do.
Not if I move my king
out.
out.
Wait a minute. Here maybe I need to be careful. Maybe you can play something like rook a4 and try to block.
Okay, yeah. Let me
okay, but maybe I might even have the cheeky e4 in that position, unblocking the block, as it were.
E4.
Yeah. So unblocking the block is definitely not the technical language for one of those, but it'll do.
Yeah, okay.
Again, this looks dangerous for black.
Yeah. So what, here?
Yeah, here I take the pawn and I just make sure that you don't have a square way. Oh, I mean, you're not blocking with the rook anyway. So then rook h7, and I'm just going to give up my pawn for your guys and king. Something like probably even e5 is a decent way to do it.
E5, yeah, and then with queen.
And I've got quite some scary pawns coming. It was only just drawn in the diagram with 2 of them and the king close. With 3 of them, the king far away.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that would be good news. I think Alfred.
So that's the thing then for white. The king d5, because it's attacking as well as supporting your own pawns. Then
yeah, I mean, this was very much a first sight sort of assumption of what white could try. Well, I'm not confident about this. I mean, black could play something like rook b1 and try and give his rook for the 2 pawns and make some counterplay. You could have a reverse.
Yeah, it's still very complicated. Yeah,
but then in all those cases, it feels like that might. I mean, king c6 then and a7 is threatened. That feels like a decent tempo to me.
Yeah,
I think that might be quite an important moment. I suspect that white should have been doing quite well in this rook ending, although it's certainly far from easy to play in practice.
Yeah. All right.
High pressure moments, these ones.
Yeah. So it's
when we first took
I'm going to put the computer back on just for a second, and then we're going to head to wood green.
Just to reveal how wrong I may be about all this.
To reveal how wrong you are. Oh, but it doesn't.
Can you go back one move and see whether king d5 was a serious improvement or not?
Oh, all right.
The engine agrees with me that this is very good, but it may be that king d5 was good too.
What happened to my computer analysis? It didn't even stay there.
There you go. It's there, I think.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
okay,
certainly winning.
King. So there, computer likes it.
Yeah, like rook h7, but I think king d5 is
rook h7 and king
still winning.
Yeah, okay, Peter. So it does
seem king c5 will be good.
Like too. The idea of if you are moving the king to then put it in touch with this pawn, so you might be able to take that off. Yeah.
But king c5 doesn't feel like it should necessarily throw away the win. Can you just see what the engine thinks of that? With all the usual caveats about the, chess24 default engine not being, it's not exactly alpha 0.
Seem to have done. No, it still likes it.
No, it still likes it. Okay, so that wasn't the moment.
Yeah.
Do you want to just see? We could just run the next few moves and see where.
All right.
So, I mean, rook h7 after king takes f2 doesn't feel like what it should be white's urgent priority.
Maybe this computer's not updating itself.
Yeah, it's also possible, but this is also probably.
Very much.
Maybe this is perfectly good. e3. Is it one of those moments where a check first wins an important tempo or something?
I don't know.
That's very honest of you, Natasha. Rook f7 check may well be. Is that true? Is that a better way? it may not just be a tempo. It may also even that it doesn't.
Yeah, no, it likes rook f6.
It likes it. It may be that's one of those, because in the game Black played rook a3 and threatened to interpose. And if you get this check-in, you'll get similar scenarios without that interposing business.
Yeah.
That's probably the crucial difference, much more than the tempo. This probably is...
Oh, because Black's going rook a3
yeah,
next.
Black doesn't have that rook a3 back to e3 and f3 thing anymore. And then the king is not where it wants to be. And then the 2 pawns, as we know, the 2 pawns on the 6th rank beat the rook even without the king. So with the king right there, it should be...
So that's not easy, but then, yes, so, but it's a technique, isn't it?
That's not easy, but I know so many of those rook versus pawn positions where where the rook's trying to win, and just making a tempo by checking is so often a good technique in that ending, and it feels like a similar business here. And I think this is very good. But after rook e7, he's a bit unlucky that rook a3 then means... Because I imagine if Black just plays e1 here, which is probably what he calculated, it's similarly bad to the other line. Rook a3 threatening gains crucial time.
Yeah.
All right.
We've got some questions in the chat. So where is this being held? It's the European Junior Teams is being held in Thessaloniki in Greece. Do we, you and I, fancy playing the European Senior Teams in Dresden? I am seriously thinking about it. Yes, I fancy it. I don't know whether I will, though. I hope to, if I can get the time off work.
When is that?
It is. When is it, Kevin? I think it's October, November. Okay. End of October, start of November. Another teams event. And then Kevin's next question, are you playing in the British in Torquay? I think
in my case, yes.
I am not. What are you playing? Are you playing in the championship, Peter?
Yes, I'm still playing in the championship, Natasha, even at my age. Yeah. And no, I wouldn't want to go to play anything else. I'm playing the championship and looking forward to it too.
And are the Irish junior team playing in the event? I'm just going to scroll down, and I do not see.
The recollection is that there are not that many teams, so I'm pretty sure.
There's a couple of Greek teams, and then these teams that you can see here, a couple of Ukraine, and these teams. Okay. And shall we now
answer the previous question? I haven't thought about it, but I always enjoy going to Dresden.
Oh well, then you should think about it. If you do, you have to think about it quite quickly, I think.
Do I? Oh gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to just hop across to the Wood Green Invitational now. We are going to cover the other age groups of the Europeans in a bit, but we're going to start here. Okay, let's see. So this is round 6 of a 9-round all-play-all event with norm opportunities. And do you want me to turn the engines back off again, Peter, or do you want them?
Yeah, maybe turn them off. I don't mind.
Back off. Yeah. Computer analysis. There you are. Bye-bye, computer analysis. All right. We have a Caracan with two nice.
With a very unusual, very early exchange of queens, which.
Do you want to? Should we whiz from the start?
Yeah, let's whiz from the sky. It's very, very interesting. Sort of, well, interesting if you like that sort of thing. Move order.
Yes.
E3 here is. I don't know how many games there are from this position on the database, but it's more a sort of system than a thing where the exact moves will be crucial. Black, this end game. It's interesting just to think about why White may think they have an advantage. There's sort of trying to. My impression was in the opening that White was trying to cover all his potentially weak squares, but then round about move 10 or 15, I thought he'd missed one, but things have turned out better so far. Okay, I mean, it's an interesting decision. Also, I guess it's partly stylistic. I mean, these guys will know each other very well. Marcus is very dynamic, plays very quickly, but he's not. He's more, to me, he's more in the sort of Simon Williams camp of dynamic attacking players who also quite like endgames.
He likes endgames, though, doesn't he, Marcus?
Yeah, I think he quite enjoys his endgame. So it's not an obvious choice for playing Marcus. It's the same problem you have with Simon Williams, because you think when you're playing these kind of very dynamic attacking players that if the queens come off, then they're going to be unhappy. But with Simon, you don't get that sort of bonus. because he's quite happy playing endgames as well, and I think rather good at it. I think that when he became very strong, I think that's part of why he did.
Knight F.
Knight G4 is a bit weird, but then on the other hand, I took a quick look at this position earlier and saw the top engine move was H5, which is not easy to predict. So H5, I guess, is interesting because you're predicting white's F3 and trying to play F4 with black, but it's a very weird idea for a human to come up with. But Knight G4 is interesting too. So okay, it forces white to defend F2, but after that,
King E.
Black needs a sort of argument as to how his knights are going to be deployed to cause white some inconvenience, because otherwise
both sides are playing strange moves, right? I'm sure this is theory, but
no, I'm not at all sure it's theory. They may well be made. I mean, it's very interesting because people like Daniel Fernandez have, they do a fair bit of writing and some theoretical work, but I'm not seeing a lot of. He's always had a kind of quirky thing going on in the opening, hasn't he? He's not always been someone who likes to play a lot of theory.
That's true. He likes unusual stuff.
Yes, well, this is reasonably unusual.
Yeah. I have a I could be wrong about this, but I have also a feeling in that the Menchik Memorial, the Kaplan Menchik Memorial tournament, that someone else played this line for white.
Oh, really? Okay.
I have a feeling that's true.
It'll be great fun if this becomes popular.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it will. I'm not sure what I think about this yet, but I can see. Okay, so now you can see that white might play F3 next when the knight would have to go back to F6, and that doesn't seem like what black has in mind, so I'm sure he'll do something about that. Bishop G7 is a fairly natural way of doing something about it.
Yeah. Okay. F3 and now knight E5. So offering the chance to get more,
which white doesn't go for.
Yeah, white doesn't. White's now, that's enough. Queen's off, but we'll keep the rest.
Yes, I don't know if that's a kind of space argument. I've got slightly more space for my pieces, so I'm going to try and keep pieces on the board. So, or whether it's almost a superfluous knight argument. The knight on B8 might have preferred to go to D7, but then there'd be no flight square for the one on E5. Maybe it was that sort of. Maybe that was in his mind as well.
Quite geometric, isn't it? The square of knights.
It's interesting.
E4 castles, and then white asks one of his knights to move.
It's just because your opponent exchanges queens on move 4 doesn't mean they don't have aggressive intent, is the one moral to take away from this story, I think.
Knight.
That's interesting. So why not knight G4?
Why not knight G4? Let's put it on.
Maybe after knight somewhere, the knight's just on an odd circuit again, but it's not so obvious to me that that's true. Because you might, in an ideal world, white might play knight C4, but then that would be kicked immediately and embarrassingly by bishop E6, I think.
Oh, bishop E6.
That has nowhere to go. So that's why I wondered if black might consider knight G4, because knight C4 didn't look like a very good reply.
You could go. You're gonna.
Yeah, you could
go here, couldn't you?
No, that may be part of the argument. Although, again, it's not obviously true, is it? It's kind of weird. I don't know. Tempted to play. No, I'm not sure. Now, maybe next move, white goes H3, and the knight has to go back to F6, and that's not the setup he wants. Although, still far from clear to me. I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't have a very strong sense of what either player is looking. I mean, for example, I don't know. No, I was be half tempted to try and switch play to the white squares and take on C3 and play F5 here or something. Just have a bit of fun. But it may be that, often when you try and switch the play and have a bit of fun like that, it's sometimes white who ends up with the fun. But you know what I mean? Because E5 would be met by bishop D5 check now, which would be pretty embarrassing.
Okay.
And suddenly, I don't know, there's some ways to make some play for black at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder whether knight G4 was worth considering, but
yeah,
I think Marcus has another deployment of his knights in mind, and it was actually a move or two later that I wondered if white hadn't kept quite all of his squares covered, as I mentioned before.
Okay, so black dropped that back.
Yeah, and king F3. So he's
taking now king F3. Yes.
Yes. That's fine. And knight e6, yeah. So you sort of think in these lines White's playing quite positionally and trying to keep all the squares covered. And I thought, okay, but d4 is somehow not covered. And I wondered whether that was going to be useful to Marcus. But actually, in the play that followed, White made sense of what he's done quite well. So g4, it's, this is very much a queenless middle game rather than an end game, isn't it? There's still very much plenty of tactical hopes going on. Knight d4 check. Black now becomes very direct.
E5.
But I'm not sure whether he may have come to regret that. This looks promising initially, because after f5 you can go bishop h6, and then you're threatening bishop takes e3 check. But what happens next? Bishop d4.
Just defending the c2 square. So yeah,
you kind of think that Black has made quite a lot of positional concessions in order to construct a threat, which wasn't actually that difficult to meet. And now for the first, the bishop on c8 now looks like a piece with a far from obvious future, and you kind of think for the first time that maybe White's achieved a bit more. On the other hand, there's a bishop f4 check, which again makes the line look more tempting for Black. He's encouraging Black forward, but maybe in ways where Black's then going to get sent back again. It's quite interesting and possibly sophisticated stuff, but I'd need to look at it more slowly to know whether it's really showing something for White.
You're right, though. The bishop on c8. Although the bishop on c1... No, that has more scope.
Well, it's more likely to become traded off. It's hard to imagine the bishop on c8 trading itself off, I guess.
Yeah.
Moves like knight c4 now look quite natural if Black can't hold that bishop on f4.
So knight f6, h3.
So he's freeing up the... Well, he's also defending against bishop takes e3 check. Rook e8. And now, he goes to c4, which is a natural enough square to aim. Once Black's played c6, familiar idea from King's Indian and various other openings, putting that knight into d6, and the bishop on F sometimes goes to f8 to defend. Now it's on f4 where it looks aggressive, but might just be out of not where it needs to be. So round about here, I started to think that I rather like White's position.
Yeah. It does look nice, doesn't it? Okay, but Black's solving the problem of this bishop.
But he's trying to. He might be solving it. I don't know if this move threatens knight takes e5, because Black could reply knight takes c2 check.
Right.
But those kind of things are probably things they both have to calculate.
Yes. g5.
Okay. Yeah.
Why would you do g5? You're stopping White going g5, of course.
Well, I think that may be part of it. Yeah, a big part of it, probably.
Yeah. Okay, so g5, b4.
Yeah.
Bishop d7, a5.
a5. Okay, so now he may well have an idea to play something like knight d6 to b7 to hold back the c5 advance, I think. I'm trying to think of ways to exploit Black's point. He's trying to drive the pawn to b5 to weaken the c5, but then that would backfire a bit if Black could then play c5 easily in the next few moves. But I think maybe knight d6 to b7 isn't so easy to meet, because White can also play a6 to try and support that knight. That's what happens. Okay. Yeah. I honestly did not know that, but it looks very very plausible to me. It's a nice idea, a6 and knight b7 and
a6. I like Daniel's play, I think. Yeah. Oh, now what's he doing?
I was expecting him to play knight e2 to change that knight off, but he's playing for more. He's trying to go knight d2 and c3 and show that the knight has no squares. I think this is really nicely played by White. And to be honest, Daniel's had a roughish start to the tournament. Yeah, he hasn't been...
Yeah, but this is looking
convincing. Really, this is really, really nice chess going on from him here. And Marcus is also not... I thought he was going to be one of the players pushing hard for normals, but of course he lost in round 1 and then has actually recovered reasonably well since then.
Yeah, he's been having a variable tournament.
Yeah, no, that's right. But this looks difficult for him. Okay, so he has this possibility to try and prove that the a6 pawn's weak, but White is threatening
He's giving up that a6 pawn. Not worrying.
Yeah, he's about to win a piece with c3.
c3.
Now, Black needs...
So now what happens? Now, what's the thing with this knight? What do you do? Because it hasn't...
Well, I assume the first thing is that I assume he wants to play... Well, no, wait a minute. So one interesting point is that If rook d8, I think we can take on d4.
Rook d8.
And then if black takes on d6, we have a fork with the pawn takes e5, which is very annoying for black.
Do. But black could take this one check.
Yes, and then I think we just have to move the king to set up a similar fork.
Oh, we don't recapture that.
No, we're not going to recapture.
We don't.
I think we're going to go king, maybe
f3.
F3 or E2, I'm not sure. Or even F2, but that might lead to black being able to get an awful lot of pawns for a piece. Something like this, I assume, is white's idea, and it's a bit awkward, to say the least.
Say there, then. So, yeah, if takes, then this is the idea.
D5, and this looks great. I mean, black can take, if the king goes to F2, black can take on G4. But look at black's, I mean, white's two pieces are quite healthy, and look at black's piece. It's stuck on A6, pinned against the A pawn, tying down the rook to its defense.
Well, that's what you do when you
this looks
that pawn on A6. You kind of divert that bishop out the way.
Yeah.
Kevin, yes, I was in Chess Fest today, so I did a tandem simul, and I did some game. I had some lovely games actually with some junior players. It was really, really nice. Yeah. But then I was maybe like after that I was quite hot, so I thought I'd come back and do some comment. And I fancy doing this commentary too. I heard about the junior event from Rich Pert this morning, and it sounded like a very nice event to cover, and Wood Green Invitational was also a very nice event, so we thought we'd cover them both.
Were there good crowds braving the heat?
Oh yes, lots of people.
Yeah, that's great.
Because it's really, really nice.
Yeah.
My favorite game was actually against Grace, who I know from online. She played in the 24-hour marathon, and she played. And then I just played her a game 1-1, and she was extremely good. But she was like even good at. She was, we were having a lot of banter, and we got into this kind of rook and pawn with it 1 minor piece each endgame. And she was like, I'm going to make your rook boring. And my rook was on this active square. And then she did, like the next few moves, she forced it into this like really passive square. And she said, now your rook is boring and your king is lonely. And I was like, oh my goodness. And we, so we had a very good game.
So she beat you and talked you down?
No, she didn't, because no, I tricked her because she wanted ice cream. So I first of all started talking about ice cream all the time. And then after that, she needed the loo. So I said, okay, we better put a stop, a timer on it. So we got her mum's phone and did a timer. And then in the blitz finish, then I tricked her. But that was the only way I could do it against her, you see. She was
something to be proud of.
She was really good. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
So this looks pretty scary for black to me.
Yeah. So, okay, they got to C3. So he's having a think about C3.
Yeah, you kind of, I mean, C3 feels like something you'd want to have had a good think about in advance, really.
Yeah. And Kevin Zoe Veselo looks a canny player for a youngster. Yes, I was speaking to someone who has been doing some work with her and is very excited about her play. I think she's very, very good. Okay, and
this is Grace doing it.
Thank you, Waterford Wizard.
Okay, that looks
that was good. Okay,
very good for white, by the way.
Good for Daniel. Let's see Jonah against Connor.
Yes. Yeah, Connor is another player who I would have expected at the start of the event to be up there fighting for norms, who's had a bit of a rough time so far.
Yeah, you look at all of the players on the list, and you would think they're all going to be fighting for.
Well, no, it's a. I mean, of course,
quite work like that.
But it's just, there was a time earlier this year where Connor seemed to play well in just about everything. Oh, sorry, maybe the end of last year more, where he played well in everything he played, really.
Yeah, and
he looked like he was improving very, very fast, and he probably is. I mean, everyone has a bad time. I mean, probably there's an element of who copes best with the heat going on at the moment.
Yeah.
Even if the conditions are good, Okay, so that's very interesting. 4d4 in the Berlin.
We had a Berlin yesterday. Yeah.
If white finds some tricky sort of open game sort of way of getting a big chance against the Berlin, a lot of people are going to be very happy, I think.
Yeah.
I heard Matthew's depressing comments yesterday about the Berlin, meaning that Fischer random was probably the future, or double Fischer random. Or something.
Fischer random's the way. I believe in that, but that's only because I don't know my openings well enough.
Yeah, I don't entirely believe in it. I believe a little bit in rewarding people who've taken the trouble to learn their openings, but I can see the problems. I can see the problems.
Yeah, that's just...
This has turned into... I don't know if this is Black's recommended recipe here with the early A6, because it's turned into another line of the Spanish you see from time to time, where White plays a very quick D4, not in the Berlin, but with A6, Bishop A4 in. And this is not meant to be terribly venomous, but...
Oh, thank you so much, Waterford Wizard. Thank you. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, Black really needs to know their stuff, although it shouldn't be too terrifying, I think. I mean, if it was so terrifying, you wouldn't see all these hundreds of games in the closed Spanish. You'd see White doing this.
Yeah.
Knight e4, so knight takes d4.
But Jonah got... Well, it was Jonah, wasn't it, who was up against the Berlin the other day, and he got this really good tactic.
Oh, the knight f6 check.
Yeah, do you remember?
Yeah, that was lovely. That was, I hate to say this, but that came a couple of moments after Matthew said something like, so nothing too much going on here.
Did he?
Sorry, Matthew, but it did. And I was quite amused by that. It was lovely. It was a lovely tactic and easy to... I mean, it did look as if not that much was going on, and then suddenly he whipped out this knight. Well, I think knight e7 was rather incautious, but yes. So knight takes d4. Jonah's always had a bit of a predilection for these kind of slightly tactical open game kind of things, slightly irregular e4, e5 openings with a little bit of punch, but not that much sort of long-term theoretical punch. And maybe he's using some of his, because, knight c5, I'm trying to remember what Black's doing wrong here. I thought knight c5 was...
Are we still in theory? So he, certainly Connor had a good think before playing knight c5, so it may be he wasn't remembering.
I mean, I wonder if Black may also be able to play something like knight takes d4 and then knight c5, and that's it's gonna win the bishop. So Black's going to get the bishop pair, but White's going to get some space and some...
like that, you mean?
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. But having said that, this doesn't look so unattractive for White. If knight c5 can be met by knight f5, as in the game, then I would have thought it would be...
a better version, yeah.
Well, I don't know. No, but also, my recollection was that what Connor did was the sort of established recipe, but if there's a problem with it, that would be very exciting for White, of course. But it may well be, as with many of these things.
Magnus know, wouldn't we?
Well, it's not that there's a problem theoretically with these things, it's that they're very good for one surprise outing, because people really have to know their stuff very accurately to neutralize it. That's the more likely thing. But I honestly can't remember. Maybe this might be a moment just to switch the engine on for a moment and check whether... Because knight f5 is the move White wants to play here if it's possible. I'm pretty sure about that. If you take on c6 with the bishop, I'd already slightly rather be Black.
Right, here you go. So, knight f5 here.
Yeah, okay. So the engine already quite likes it. So in that case, I must have slightly misremembered what Black is supposed to do.
Well, we can see in this other line as well.
Yes.
Knight c5. So that looks pretty equal.
Is that okay? Maybe that's the way to go.
Maybe that's what I'm going to do.
If you think you're being caught in...
Loz does knight takes d4 followed by knight c5.
That is the way, yeah? That feels like the way to me. Yeah.
That's the way.
I'd forgotten that, but... there has to be a way. Otherwise, you'd see this an awful lot of the time.
Yeah.
So, but after knight f5, it looks practically quite tricky for Black, and I suspect it very quickly became a lot worse than that.
So let's see. G6.
Oh, that's already... I mean, this position's...
I'm going to turn this computer off again because it's distracting me.
Maybe distracting you, mate. I was finding it quite helpful.
Oh, sorry, Chuck.
No, I'm joking. I could live without it. Yeah, I mean, this position looks horrible for black, actually. If white had to take on c6 and black could take with the d-pawn, then black's position looks a little bit like things you get out of the 3g6 line or something, and they're kind of okay. But if white can very quickly try to play knight d5, knight c3 to d5, and that kind of thing, then it looks incredibly scary for black in that case. So if white gets knight d5, then it just looks...
So could black take on a4 just to divert the knight the other direction?
I don't think it's going to be diverted. It's going to meet knight a4 with knight d5.
It's still going to go knight d5.
Yeah, it's definitely going knight d5. If you could divert it, you definitely would, and then you'd probably be okay. It's going to knight d5. It's going to d5, come what may. So knight takes a4, knight d5. Queen probably has to go to d8, and then I expect white just plays knight f6 check, king e7, and then maybe bishop g5. I don't see a good reason not, and I suspect black's queen is not long for this world.
Yeah.
Basically, simple as that, I think.
Okay, that looks fine. That looks good, in fact.
This?
Yes, for white.
I should think it does. I'd play it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think black's pieces are going to be quite boring fairly quickly.
Yes. What she meant by boring was that it just didn't
sort of
have scope. Yeah.
Wonderful expression for.
Your rook. Your rook's boring.
No, I love that.
It just summed it up. It just did sum it up pretty well. I'm going to make your rook boring.
Yeah.
Anyway, knight b4.
Okay, so that's pretty much the only way to stop knight d5. And Jonah is determined to play knight d5, so he goes e3.
Knight takes a4.
Okay. And now I suspect Jonah desperately wants to keep that knight on the board if there's a way. So if he can, he'll play knight e4 or something.
He took on he just recaptured.
Oh, really? So is that too much, knight e4? Maybe. Yeah, I suppose the king has the d8 square now, which might not be so catastrophic as.
So okay. So does knight e4? Can you?
Well, okay. So knight c6, and I don't know.
Yeah,
no, it's not so clear.
You can't.
The thing is, white's got a great position, so why be speculative? You probably have time to go. Did he just take on a4 and come back again?
Yeah, he took.
Losing 2 tempi isn't great, but if you're recovering a piece,
and come back, just trying to get in on d5.
D5 come way. This looks horrific for black. Okay, why is that better than knight d5 straight away? I wonder.
Knight d5. Yeah.
It may just be that after queen d8 you play bishop f4 anyway. It may amount to very much the same thing. Oh, no, I don't know. Bishop f4 here looks very good as well. I expect they're all good. I suspect there's some leeway in how to do this for white.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bishop f4, queen e6.
Queen e6. Okay, so he needs to meet knight. Okay, that might be the argument for white having done it the other way around. In this case, black can go queen e6 and king d8. But I mean, if that's the argument against your line of play, then you feel things can't be too bad, I think.
What, knight d5 now, do you think?
Now, I guess black's intention is to go king d8 because otherwise he's not going to defend. But this just still looks equally grim, really. I mean, just build natural moves, queen d2, rook d1, that sort of thing, I think is...
Yeah.
I don't think black's taking on e5. I think you can meet knight e. I mean, if you went queen d2 or something, then if knight takes e5, you probably have knight takes c7 and queen c3 check already. Looks most likely devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the position where they're at.
Oh, really? Has white not gone knight d5?
No, white's having a think.
Okay.
White might yet go knight d5. But it's not happened.
Possible that, yes. I mean,
but maybe
be careful you don't get one of these things where you've got so many wonderful possibilities you don't know which one to choose. But
that you think for ages and then don't really know.
But in my games against Jonah, he's tended to handle the clock a lot better than I have, so I won't give him any advice on that one.
Okay, so that one's in progress. Let's see. Zala against Tim. So this one came from a d4, d5 opening.
Okay. So Tim's having a good tournament. Yeah?
He's yeah. Well, so he had certainly an extremely good day on Friday.
He had a 2 out of 2 day. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, like against that was against Daniel Fernandez, wasn't it? And Marcus, was it?
That's a fantastic day.
Right, if I put that there, it should tell me.
It's interesting because Zala, I first saw in a tournament organised by Tim. Back, I saw her first at the Northumberland Masters last year, and
right.
She made a norm, maybe an IM norm. She made a norm and looked very impressive. She played really well, and again, I was thinking she would do fine here, but so far she's struggled a bit, I think.
Yeah, it's possible, right? It's a tough.
It's very, very possible to struggle in this field, but she, she looked so impressive the time I saw her first.
Yep. Yeah.
She's a good player.
Yeah. So Tim had this amazing Friday. The other days less good so far, but let's see.
Well, Tim's another person who can be dangerous partly because of his maverick openings. I mean, he will, even now, he's very good at taking people out of the sort of what they will have prepared, and he has a range of unusual systems to challenge people.
Now Lawrence says Zala has 2 WGM norms and 1 IM norm. So
yes, I think Northumberland might have been the IM norm, and yeah.
So these two would presumably have played. Oh, I suppose Tim was organising.
Tim was organising that one, but I have a feeling they have played somewhere else. Although I may be wrong about that. Okay, so this is already a slightly unusual opening, putting the bishop on f5. All those things where black puts the bishop on f5 earlier are slightly unusual, but she's choosing not to try any of the complicated stuff to challenge it directly with sort of queen b3 or something. She's just going for a kind of Catalan setup. And, it's interesting because the bishop may be better on f5, or sometimes it may turn out to have, abandoned the queen side a bit. I'm not so crazy about what she's doing here in the sense that unless, White's chasing that bishop, White's creating some slight pawn weaknesses, and she needs to show that the bishop on g2 is a decent piece. Having the bishop pair here won't necessarily be enough for an advantage.
Yeah, and she doesn't...
Yeah, so notice that she took there in a position where e takes would allow knight f5, which is probably the main idea, because, in some positions, if black plays e takes, then, White is pretty much committed to trying to taking an isolated pawn to get that bishop on g2 back in the game again. But I think if White has a ready-made knight f5, that makes it much less attractive for black.
Yeah.
So that's the timing of that one. And c takes. Okay, now we have a... how solidly White's able to play in an exchange Slav or something. It feels to me here like White's position's a little bit looser than... you've got an exchange Slav pawn structure with a slightly looser position. I mean, it may turn out that White opens things up and the bishop pair is good, but I don't think that's guaranteed.
Okay. Okay, and now Tim just tries to swap off the bishop.
Well, it's one of the tried and tested methods for playing against the bishop pair is to try and change one of them off, and this is not a ridiculous idea.
And might come in.
One of my first ever international tournaments, I remember playing when I was 16 or something, playing in a junior tournament. I remember playing the top seed, who was a Russian, and I played the Slav exchange, which is not really my style. And he played some variation where he exchanged his c8 bishop for my knight.
Okay.
And I got this kind of structure, not exact. I hadn't got the bishop on g2, but I probably had it on f3 or something. And I remember just feeling like I had no pawn breaks and no idea where I should be playing. And I know now that it wasn't as bad as it was in my head. But I've still always had a bit of a bias against these things. It feels to me like it's easier to create play with black here than it is with white.
Just because you don't like the bishop on...
I'm not crazy about having this bishop on g2. I mean, I sort of, all the time I was trying to play e4 to bring it to life, and maybe sometimes you can get away with the IQP, but if you don't, it's difficult to find it. Yeah, difficult to find it a role, I think.
Cool. A little trick.
Yeah, little trick. I think the point of the trick is to put the knight on c7 to... Or no, the point of the trick might be actually to change the pawn structure, which is what he now does. So queen c7, I guess. Oh, and now she's got the e4 breaking. And here it comes with the extra thing that it's not creating an IQP, but look at the weak f4 square. That is still potentially a factor. On the other hand, okay, he's decided to take it in a very... that's a very interesting positional pawn sack. He's got his eye on the f4 square. He's got his eye on the trying to keep the bishop on g2 out of play. There's a lot to like. On the other hand, it's not obvious.
You don't have to do it, though, do you? You could.
No, he didn't have to do that. Although I think her timing of e4 was probably quite sensible.
Right.
But no, he could play normally. He could take on e4 and probably defend that position okay with the knight against the bishop. But I think she's, e4 was certainly the right idea if d4 doesn't work. Put it that way, even despite the f4 square. But here he's trying very directly to... Oh, that gives a tempo for knight d3. And given that the f4 square is the main thing, I wonder...
Knight d3.
Oh, wait a second. I wonder whether... Now I'm trying to think crazy variations. If she'd played something like queen c3 or something, which looks... I wonder whether there was some crazy
idea. Can't you?
So?
Oh, always rook d...
I was just thinking about rook d3 after queen c3. Can we just see that? Because I had a crazy idea, but I don't know if it's any good at all.
So instead of queen b4?
Yeah. No, my crazy idea is not any good at all. Why not queen c3? Yeah.
And then rook d3, yeah?
Yeah, and then just queen c2 or something.
Well, what about knight d3 then?
Well, perhaps, but the point of queen c3 is not to be losing a tempo after,
Right.
In the game. Oh, she's putting the queen to b6. That's why she's allowing that tempo. Okay. No, rook d3 I don't think makes much sense. Queen c2. I had an idea that maybe black could play rook takes h3, but I think white can go f4.
Okay.
And anyway, I was only trying to make a draw, and I'm not sure that he should be trying to make a draw. Okay,
so queen c3 might be...
I mean, it's okay. So her idea is to exchange queens, and that may be quite prudent. The question is, how great is black's compensation anyway? Black can look at moves like g5 and knight g6 just to play with the knight against the bishop anyway.
Yeah.
Tim is not afraid of creative and slightly risky solutions, as we know. So now queen b6, which is honestly the only way to justify queen b4. Otherwise, it's just a loss of tempo.
Yeah.
So, how does he play this?
He's gone... so rook c8. I think he's going to try and take the c5 pawn.
Yes.
Lessons from Blindfold King. I always look at these.
Why is that recommended based on this game?
I don't know. Okay.
Maybe they're assuming the commentators are blindfolded. That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
Not sure. Interesting position. So I mean, one thing I think, if black had taken on on b6 last move and taken on b2, I think white was going to go e5 and activate that bishop quickly.
Here, so if black took here.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a mistake, taking on b2 and then e5. Although it's not so clear to me, because black can play something like knight b6 here. Or knight c4 maybe takes... Oh, then you get to take a6 as well. Not so sure.
Oh, thanks for the follow, Roller Coaster.
Yeah, this feels like something black should avoid, because, it's all... so much of it's a contest between these two minor pieces, and here's a case where the bishop looks pretty healthy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Suddenly, I think for black to play his pawn sacrifice consistently, he wants to keep that bishop.
So all right. So what about like rook d7 to defend,
okay.
and then
I want to go rook c1 to try and keep your knight out of.
Stop me doing what I was about to do.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yes.
Oh,
but knight a4 is possible.
Knight d3. Knight a4.
Knight d3, I'm going rook c7, and that will be a bit awkward, I think.
Then I was going to just take on e5 with the knight.
Bishop takes b7, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that b pawn is going to be very scary. It may not be, but
it is scary. All right. So yeah. So this one to
knight a4 and trying to get rid of it feels more.
Yeah.
Because now if I go rook c7, you can probably just check on d1 and take on b6. So.
And take here.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't.
And actually, a knight would probably be better than the bishop on g2 for trying to coordinate with the rook and make some threats. I'd like to try and attack f7 or something, but it's not. I suppose I could take on b7. No, I don't like this for white very much. I need to try and go bishop
for black
e8 or something, but that's tricky to get in.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, this is okay for.
So that's yes.
Might be okay for black, but I had a feeling. I mean, after rook d7, I could also. No, what else could I do? Not sure.
Okay, I want to actually hop back to the juniors before it ends.
Indeed.
So we do have one more game to look. A couple.
Yeah, should we just very quickly see that one? Maybe just 2 minutes, and then we'll.
So under 12s. Let's see how it's going. The big match against Turkey. So we have results in 3 of the boards. So Turkey are 2-1 up. So it's all on board 1. Yeah. Let's see how that's going.
Yeah, board 1 was the one where we quite liked Soham's position, but
yeah,
I think white's done a version of what I suggested, trying to keep the e5 pawn solid rather than trading it for the black pawn.
This is where we are.
Oh wow, I was going to say that didn't look terribly far on.
Yeah. That was kind of what we were looking at, and then here we are now. So,
oh wow,
can black just take that pawn now?
Black can just take that pawn, and then white wants to play. I suppose white wants to play b6 and try and push that one very quickly.
Yes. So takes b6 now.
b6 and then rook a4 check, I guess. Oh, I think I'll come
back this way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll do that with tempo as well, probably.
Yes. Okay.
It's strange. We're going to get a second one of these. Likely to get a second one of these rook versus advanced pawns positions, like the one that should have been good for us on board 4.
Yeah.
Sorry about.
Yeah. So king. Let's say he comes here. And then we just go behind.
Yeah.
And what, c6?
Yeah, king c6, and that would threaten rook b5, I guess.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, wait a minute. Not really. We'll just go g3 here, I think.
Okay.
We're in time to go g3.
Oh, okay, because even if you do swap the rooks...
Well, if you just rook b5, we take and we will change queens and I think, oh, no, we won't change queens. We'll win a queen with queen b1 check at the end of
winning a queen's good.
Yeah, it's even better than changing would be enough in this position, but winning...
This looks pretty promising.
I think it's very promising. I think the whole thing is very promising. I mean, I don't think white played a5 with enthusiasm. White played a5. He was losing his a pawn anyway, and he thought this was the best way to give it up.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I mean, I think black's probably winning if he has to give up his rook for the pawn in these positions, but obviously if he doesn't have to, it might be a lot cleaner.
Got some more moves. b6. I didn't take.
Oh, he didn't take, but I also, by the way, thought not taking was a decent option as well.
So, yeah, here.
I mean, he's just queening his g pawn now, so.
Yeah, b7.
Okay, but I'm very confident. Can I see, by the way, I'm sure that, yeah, black could also have won by playing g1 check. Sorry, yeah.
Black's won. Hurrah! Well done, Soham.
Well done, Soham. That's very good.
So we've tied the match against Turkey, so that's very nice. They're in the lead.
Good.
let's have
well played, Soham. He's a good player, Soham. I've seen him over some years now and always been quite impressed.
Excellent. Let's see the under 18s.
Yes.
Right, I do that, don't I? So let's see. How do I do it? On here, pairings.
Yeah,
and we are in the under 18s. We are playing Romania. So we've had a draw on one. We've unfortunately lost board 4, but we have 2 games still going. So let's see. Let's see those. I also noticed that the ratings of Romania we're outrated in this one quite.
We are quite heavily outrated, yeah.
Heavily. So let's see. It's okay. Savas.
So board 1 was a draw, yeah. So that.
Yes,
yes.
That should go with comment, shouldn't it?
Yes.
So let's just
see that very quickly.
Just see that. Ranesh.
That's Ranesh Ratnasan with white and
Andre Philip. FIDE master Andre Philip.
Yes.
Rook and pawn end game.
Yeah, and.
And it was a, I guess it was going to be a Bogo Indian. That's the clue at the bottom. Yep.
Okay. Oh, this line is quite tricky. We won't go back.
We'll whiz through just because.
Okay, I'm going to work out why they made an immediate draw here. Is white going b3?
B3, okay.
But I'm not certain, because even if you take on a4, you can't then play rook d8.
No, they have played b3. Wait a minute.
Oh, it's all happened. Oh, this has all happened.
I'm now confused.
Have they not given us?
Let's see. This has happened here. Because sometimes you get a result on there when there isn't a result.
Okay.
But this looks like a draw, right?
I have to say, it's an awful lot clearer why this was a draw. This is, it's not just the rook that's boring in this position, it's everything. But no, white, okay, so white's been very solid. He's a very solid and sensible player, Ranesh, and this is a...
Yeah, no, that's a nice result.
Solid and sensible solution. I think it's a normal result for him with white, actually. But it's fine, yeah. That's solid. Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Let's see, Savas against FIDE master Stepanenko.
So shall we see it from his point of view?
Flip the board. So we are playing black.
Okay, so there is. So black has an isolated queen pawn. They both have sort of potentially targetable rook pawns. Black's just played a6. Is black threatening to play knight takes a5 here? That's the first.
Could black have played knight takes a5 already?
I see the problem with knight takes a5. No, he's not threatening to play knight takes a5 because takes rook c8 will be very awkward to defend.
Oh, right.
Let's don't want to play f6.
Yeah. So
white
here,
played on the 7th rank. So that's not a. So he's got this nice knight, but he can't. Yeah, this is
take it. Yeah.
Rook c8.
Yeah, with this horrible threat,
and something like,
or indeed that horrible threat.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that's the one I saw first, but the other one's good too. Yeah, and something like f6, just for the record, fails completely to queen c3, and white will invade on c7 or take a rook on a5.
Rook's on, and yeah, and then rook.
That's very good. Okay, so it's in a sense it's that very nice knight on c4, which is holding black's position together. So it's really.
And you could go rook a3.
No, then okay. Yeah, but I think then something like, I still don't think you're going to be able to defend d7.
No, I don't like it.
Queen c6 and rook c7, I think, will be the end of the game.
Okay. All right. So this is dangerous. So so
it's dangerous, but you know that the danger comes when the rook comes down the c file. If the knight can stay on c4, it's shielding. I mean,
So what about e4 for e4? Just queen take. No, e4. What about e4?
Well, e4. I think we're going to have the knight on b3 will be on prise at the end. So white won't, after queen takes, white won't really be threatening to take twice and take on c4 because we can then take on b3.
Jolly good.
The only possibility for using the c4 knight is possibly sometimes knight d6 might be a move because it stops c8 at the same time. And there is this knight f5 move which drives the queen off that scary diagonal. Might be. But I like his sensible approach of playing a6 and just keeping the
keep it tight at the back.
Keep the knight on c4. So white needs to come up with an idea here to make progress. I mean, black's. There's a little bit of me wants to just check that black has a decent next move if white sort of manages to do nothing. But it's not sort of trivially easy for either player to do nothing here.
Well, I mean, your knight d6 move, maybe.
Well, I suppose that is possible. I think I was noting that it was possible more than I was sort of advocating it, because I'm a little bit nervous that, although it stops rook c8 for the moment, you've got to be a little bit careful. Longer term, I quite like the knight on c4 shielding the rook. But it's not obvious to me what white does next. I mean, if you play expansive moves on the king side like g4, that comes with some extra risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, actually, I think black's position is sort of holding up okay, because, there are weak squares on the white side as well. The rook on b5 is well placed to defend the d pawn and keep an eye on the a pawn. It feels a bit passive. I'm not sure Grace would like it, but it's not that boring a rook, actually.
Yeah.
So I think he's doing okay. Savas, I think he's handled this quite well.
Nice. Okay. Let's see the next one as well.
And we have...
let's flip it around again. Aria.
Yeah. Aria
pawn ending.
No, started well with 2 out of 3 or something, and then has had a slightly rougher passage the last couple of days. But so...
So it's slightly tricky for white because the king's it's quite advanced and central, but it is also a little bit exposed, isn't it? So
it's at the same time a king.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of, active king in the endgame and all that is all very well, but he's quite spirited what he's doing here. I mean, he's sort of, he was clearly he was clearly worse in the position, I would have thought, and he's making a fight of it by trying to use his king as an active piece in a pretty simplified position. If he hadn't done what he's done with the king, I suspect black would be a pawn up with very good chances to convert. And as it is, he's creating some mess, as John Spillman would put it. So
yeah.
And g4 is consistent with that attempt to create a mess. I mean, I didn't see what went just before. It may be that black could have done better than this. But okay, so now if it was...
It's white to play.
It's white to play. I was trying to work out if white was actually either intending or threatening in some way to take on f5. Queen d3.
White's lining it up.
Now he's definitely lining it up, yeah. So the question is whether...
Queen f2.
And if white carries on with his plan of taking on f5?
Yeah. I was going to take something with check.
So black can't play anything like g6 because then his own king is too exposed. There's at least an immediate perpetual. Possibly more, actually. Oh, in fact, I think the move G6 loses in 2 moves to Queen D7 check and then King F6.
Oh wow,
which is kind of nice, although it must be said.
That is nice. Black's not going to play it.
Oh no, sorry, there might be E5 check in that position, but I mean, G6 would be a move that thoroughly deserves to lose anyway. So, what to play for Black? I hadn't really expected Queen D3, but now it's on the board, I quite like it. I mean, this really is a good object lesson.
Yeah, because like if what happens if the queens get exchanged? This is nice for white.
Well, then of course the king on E5 is without any doubt an asset. It's not like Black has Black's got this advanced A pawn, but it's not passed and it's not about to be supported. So
okay, so see what Black does. Queen C7 check.
Yeah, king takes E6. Get on with it, I think. And now there are no simple. I mean, now Queen C6 check or something. White needs to avoid taking on F5.
Because we get mated.
No, because you get your queen skewered.
We get skewered. Yeah, I see the skewer.
That wouldn't be much fun.
No, skewer there.
But I think if you just, I don't really see why you couldn't continue in the same spirit after Queen C6 check with King E7 or something. Sort of...
Yeah.
And Queen the King. Or something like that. No, this is a very spirited defense by Arya. I really like it. I mean, maybe I'm missing something for Black, but
okay, go Arya.
And he's got a decent amount of time on the clock as well. There's sort of, I mean, again, I haven't seen the previous few moves, but it feels to me like a position which was probably going better than it was a few moves ago. Can we just see if the engine's got some nasty thing here?
Let's see. So we're going to put it back to the actual position.
Yeah, put it back to the position rather than all
and
this.
We'll switch the engine on for a moment.
It's quite possible there's some...
Oh. That wasn't what we wanted to see.
Oh, is it very bad? Is there something we've missed?
Maybe.
That's why I wanted to check.
Queen F2. It is Queen F2. Takes and Queen
I missed Queen takes H2 check. Okay, so takes Queen H2 and King E6. Why is that so bad?
E6.
Oh, Queen A2 check. Sorry, I missed that completely. That's an unfortunate element in the position I hadn't seen. Okay, so let's not take on E6. Let's go F4 and just... Because I still want to see if we can drum up some counterplay. F4. Yeah. And now if he takes on A2, we have F6 check. And you sort of imagine in practical play that's going to cause Black an anxious moment or two. It's going to cause an anxious moment and be a draw, according to the engines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an immediate draw, I think. So Black has a good move here, which I haven't.
Queen H5, the like. It's the only move
Queen H5, I'd not noticed. That's very annoying because then Black can.
Because it pins this pawn, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, it pins the pawn after King takes E6. Black can trade the queens under worse circumstances with Queen E8 check. The pawn endings were good, but not the one with a very fast passed H pawn.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't find that very easy to see just tuning into the game for the first time.
No, I mean, we were thinking...
But it may be a lot easier to see if you've been there. I hope not, but it may be that Black finds it.
Yeah. It might not. It was only one move he had to find there.
It's only one move, isn't it? So was Queen D3 actually a mistake? Could White have played differently there and taken on F5 immediately?
Queen B6, computer likes, G takes F5.
Yeah, but only not as much. White's not as okay as I was beginning to think he might be. But yeah, so Queen D3 looks clever, but seems to have a fatal flaw.
The downside, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yes, I mean, you should probably see that Queen C7 takes H2 hits A2 if you've been playing the game, but you might not. I mean, it's not that.
Okay, I'm going to switch very quickly to, let's see, what should we see? The girls under 12s.
Yes.
Where we have, I think it says smaller matches.
Yeah, these are only 2 boards. Yeah.
Okay, I can report the result here against a strong Romanian side. We've gone down 1.5. So This is Tsumi Jayawana got a draw with Maria Antonia Aldia in this kind of queen and minor piece position.
Yes, it looks like, looking at the engine assessments, it looks like she had some small advantage for a while in the game. She's a very good player, Tsumi. I've been quite impressed for some time now. I think she's. I sort of always expect her to do even better than she does, because I think she has a very rational way of looking at chess, from what I've heard from somebody who worked with her once. But also, just looking at her play and her results, I've been quite impressed. Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah, I mean, she's got a good result here, and also, like, just even playing this kind of event, you're going to be learning stacks. So.
Well, yeah, but I also don't think she's 1369. I don't think these ratings are representative
for sure.
in any way. I don't know. I mean, yeah, Black looks quite okay in this position, but you can sort of imagine how a few moves back that might not have been the case. Anyway, yeah, there's not so much left in this position, and if there is anything, it's probably not for white.
Yeah.
No, I think it's pretty okay.
And she only had a minute on the clock as well, so I think she. Yeah.
No, you definitely.
Good idea to take the draw there.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Alana.
And I'm wrong. White's fractionally better, if anything, according to the engine.
Yeah. Alana Ashton.
Oh, that's a shame. There's a tactic being missed at the end there.
Okay.
Can we see what happened at the start of the game? Just see whether it started well.
Started the game. It's one of these.
Oh, it's an F3. Well, that's always fun. Let's have a quick look at that.
Yeah, we like those.
Yeah.
We're defending against the Grand Prix.
Indeed. In the approved manner.
There
are other ways too, but knight d4.
This is perfectly good. This is good.
Knight d4 is very important. Knight d4, because the position where white takes on c6 with the pawn already on f4 a little bit pleasant for white, whereas knight d4 is absolutely the way to go. This line, yeah, it's sort of quite theoretically critical, supposedly, although I think playing without d5 is perfectly good as well. You get these positions where, Black needs to avoid having the bishop pair kind of smothered in some kind of French structure where they never come to life, but particularly after e5. So a6. But I think white should go back to c3 there. Knight a3 looks a bit strange to me, which is... Bishop f3. I'm not sure there was a need to rush with bishop f3, but it's fine. Queen takes knight h6. I wonder if Black should have gone e6 and knight e7, because here Black wants to play knight f5 and then h5 to cement the knight. But if the queen moves first, then if you go knight f5, you might get hit by g4 before you get time to cement it.
Right.
If you go via e7, you also have the option of going kind of knight e7 to c6. It might just be a little bit more flexible.
And then knight.
I wonder. Okay, so knight h6. But Black's position is... well, the engine strongly approves for a few moves or so.
It's all good.
This is all good. And now I think she needed h5 here.
Okay.
I think if you cement that horse, you've got a pleasant position.
To this.
And
this can't.
And then the pawn can't come to g4. And if the pawn can't come to g4, the knight's going to sit there for a while.
It's a nice place for the knight, isn't it?
With the knight on a3, I guess white can try and challenge it with knight c2 to e3 or something. But that is many things, and none of them is terrifying for Black. So. Yeah, that might be an important moment. Although, I don't think it's so terrible after the knight's moved back either.
Okay. And I suppose you could now consider going back to e7.
Well, then you have to reckon with queen h4 and a quick f5. That might be quite scary, actually, because if the bishop on c1 starts to play, you can imagine Black might... So, but queen b3, the queen g3 doesn't look quite right. So, yeah, white's stuff is still at home. There should be a way of doing this for Black. I don't think... Oh, wow.
It's
Wow.
a thematic move in this opening, isn't it?
I'm not crazy about f6, but I hadn't really considered f5. It's a very interesting way of... So the knight on h6 is now attacked by the... one of the annoying things about white's position was the bishop on c1 didn't have that much perspective, but obviously...
Yeah. Okay, so she blocks it off. Oh.
Yeah, but that doesn't... That comes at rather a high price, because there's now e takes f6 and bishop takes g5. So I feel a bit sorry for Alana here, because it's it's suddenly a very unusual situation. You can't play this position after f5 by kind of relying on things you know.
Yeah. So what do you do? So she...
Well, I think even one move before f6, I wonder if there's a better way of doing.
So thanks for following you to Twitch. E takes f5 they like, actually. E takes f5. But wait a minute. Wait. You can't do that, can you? Because look, E takes f5. They take on there.
They do.
Why is this?
Yeah, I think it's wanting to do something to do with taking on b2. But I mean, probably you have to take on h6 first, so that the rook is in front of the queen rather than behind it.
Takes.
On b2.
Oh well, yes. Okay, this is true.
Yeah, but there's a fair element of hoping for the best going on here as well. I mean, rook b1 takes b7 could be very dangerous. I kind of think that it's become, whatever the engine says, it's become very hard for black to play in the last few moves.
Okay.
Whereas before, I don't think it was especially. I think black had pleasant options.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit.
So you were thinking maybe f6.
I'm not sure. Even before f6, I mean, here white's already threatening f5, so black needs sort of clever stuff to.
So the computer does like this here. So let's just see what it thinks. D4 or f5.
D4. That's the kind of thing I meant by clever stuff, with doing something as a distraction to this f5 idea.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a matter of black may well end up sacking a piece, but having some serious play. Yeah, f5 is a better move than f6 because it probably forces white to take. And the problem with Alana's f5 is at her f6, she probably thought she was forcing white to take. But then f5 comes and she finds she's not, if you see what I mean. Okay, I think she was a bit unlucky there. I think that could have...
Hello, new to Twitch. Have you ever played knight bd7 in the King's Indian? Yes, definitely. Don't understand why it's bad.
It's not.
Sometimes it's okay. It's okay. It's a line.
I don't think it's bad at all. It's When you say bad, is it? I mean, the engine doesn't like all kinds of things in the King's Indian. The engine's got a terrible anti-King's Indian bias.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Whenever you're analysing chess, whenever you're analysing the King's Indian, you need to discount the engine's horrible bias and just get on with it. That's pretty much... Knight d7, I think, is quite tricky to play against for white in practice.
Oh, look, we have an English win here in the under 18 girls. Under 18
Anna
girls.
is a strong player who's had a slightly ropey tournament, I think, but she's good.
Oh, we've got a lovely result here. England against Greece. We have a 2-0 win. Anam and Nina both winning.
That's good. Shall we see what Nina did as well?
Yes, let's see. So should we see? And
yeah,
right.
Let's see how
we're going to do it really quick.
Very quick.
It's always hard to do it really quick. Okay, so this kind of thing with f4 and a closed Sicilian.
I'm not sure about knight c3. If you can get this sort of thing when your knight's not committed yet, I'm not sure it should go to c3. But now it looks fairly scary for black anyway, because white could be quite quick on the king side. Yep, there's that square. Oh, knight g. Okay, it's complicated.
Oh, I don't know what sound, but it is nice to see.
Well, she's very aggressive, I think.
Going for it, yeah.
And it sometimes comes off and sometimes not, but when it does, it looks very good. That's a lovely move. That's tactically a nice... It's tactical and positional, because it can't be taken, because then white wins material on g5. Sorry, it can't be taken by pieces. If it's taken by the d pawn, then c5 hangs and fb7 hangs. It just brings all white's pieces to life. I mean, e5 is a move which, if you play any kind of close Sicilian or f4 Sicilian, you should always kind of be on the lookout for. But this is a particularly devastating example from black's point of view. In fact, d takes loses a piece as well. So black is now losing material by force, I think. Why is the engine giving that not very scary assessment? What on earth does it want to do there? One moment, maybe No, I don't understand.
Oh, I see. Okay, you want, yes, in this position, why
What was
is
the engine saying white could do? Black could do.
Right.
I thought
bishop takes e5?
I was going to say it must have something to do with bishop h2 check, but I couldn't see why that was such a big deal. Can we just see that?
See? You want to see the engine line? Bishop e5.
I mean, I probably ought to be able to see. But okay, so if you play bishop takes g5, if you play bishop takes g5...
Oh, sorry. Bishop takes g5. They want knight g5. Sorry, I'm going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. So then, I'm just trying to understand without having looked at it for very long. Oh, then there's bishop d4 check, of course. That's the thing. No, that's a big problem.
Oh, right.
That makes more. Sorry, that's what I'd missed for a moment. Okay, so if there's bishop d4 check, then yeah, then you have to play rook takes g5. And no, I mean instead of this, before.
Oh, I
rather
see.
than bishop takes, because you need it to be checked, don't you? And you need the bishop covering bishop d4 check.
Yeah. So
and that's when black has bishop h2, and it's not so obvious to me intuitively why that's such a big deal. Is black just changing? No, I don't know.
Check.
And here, and now let's have a think.
I guess we take.
I think was the engine saying something else.
Now let's see. Knight g5.
Take.
King d7.
Oh, and it just thinks if you change a pair of rook after king d7, black gets to change a pair of rooks. This is the thing, of course. 2 pieces against a rook is so much bigger an advantage in the middle game than it is in the end game. It's not that unusual to see 2 pieces against a rook go a bit wrong in the end game. But my hunch here is that white should be better anyway. A bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course this is how black should play and cling on. Wouldn't be so terrible.
Yep.
Is this what happened in the game, actually?
No, what happened in the game, we had e5.
Knight
it was actually knight takes. Not
okay. No, and then it's much...
And then takes here, gets this very...
Yeah, there's 2 pieces against a rook is a very different proposition because there's knight to e4.
Oh, clever. She's giving it back to go into winning king and pawn ending. Very nice. Very nice.
Because if you don't have that, you probably shouldn't play bishop takes b7 in that position.
Yeah, because if you have to move the bishop and then the b pawn drops, it's much less clear. But now this is very nice because if the rook takes the bishop, she's got knight takes c5, and then she's got a winning king and pawn endgame.
Okay.
And she went on to win. So very nice from Anna.
Yeah, that's very nicely done.
And let's see Nina. So Nina put, and I'm going to flip it so we've got. Right, sorry. Okay, again, I'm just going to go really fast. She's doing a Dutch.
Okay. Oh, I like these where you get what's essentially a Nimzo Indian, but with f5 on the board. I think white in the Dutch should avoid an early knight c3 because these sort of Nimzo Indians with f5 on are really very nice for black a lot of the time, I think.
Okay.
That's one of my early prejudices that I haven't lost that one, I think. I don't think it is.
I think
they just are quite. You can imagine, in the Nimzo Indian, you sometimes take on c3, then play knight e4, then play f5, and get your knight driven back.
Right.
You get it all in one. It's already made.
Yeah,
I like this for black already. I mean, it might be theoretic. I'm sure it's theoretically playable for white, but it's not the way to go, I think. Okay. Yeah, black's. I mean, again. A sort of big deciding factor as to whether black gets an attack in these lines or whether she can play f4. And here she's got f4 very easily. And it's sort of very, sometimes you have to play f4 as a pawn sack or as, with some inconvenience. Here, e4 has given her a very easy f4 and it's all going to flow, I think.
Bishop g4. So she's threatening taking.
She's threatening to take on f3 and take on g3, and white can resign, I think, almost. So knight h4 feels like the move because if you can trade the knight for the bishop. Oh, I don't like g5 because I think white wants to go knight f5 in some cases, and if you can get a position where the Actually, yeah, I'm not sure. If white played knight f5 now, black could probably flick in f3. But after you've played g5, knight f5, you can't flick in f3 anymore because of queen takes g5 in some positions, I suspect. So
right, yeah,
and if you have to trade the knight on f5, then you're giving the bishop on g2 a life, which it wasn't going to have otherwise. That's why I'm not. I think g5 is a bit excitable because I like black's position, but you still need to show a little bit of timely restraint. I mean, queen h5 or something maybe feels like a good move.
right, yeah.
I don't know, I'm just guessing something to the king side, but not yet g5. Although you can see why it's tempting, but it's a little bit much. Yeah, queen h5. I think doing those moves in the other order would have made sense. Oh, h4. That is not the way to go, I think. That feels very risky for white.
Yeah, because you could just take on f5 and h4, for example.
Well, that's one possibility. There may be others, but that certainly is one attractive possibility. Oh, actually, it's not what the engine was. What about flicking in? Can we just see if we can work out why it's... I mean, just taking on h4 without removing the knight looks quite tempting, because if white takes on f4, there's going to be some rook g6y type things in the position, bishop f3 or something. It looks very scary. And if white plays knight takes h4, just play rook a f8, and you sort of sense white's whole king side is not that far away from collapse.
Yeah. Thanks for the follow, Elian. Drip 5. Bishop takes. Okay, so yeah, all right. Engine wanted
just to take, I guess.
Yeah, just
take and to get onto the G file. I was going to go or the F file, but the G file's stronger even. Yeah.
Engine also like this move. Actually, funnily enough.
Yeah, again, not a great mystery, because if you can get your rook to the G file, it's
other rook to the G file. Yeah. So yes, so
if you play bishop takes f5, it looks promising as well, but you do give white a bishop now that might not be a bad piece. You can't play f3 because of queen g, or probably not because of queen takes g5 check.
Yeah, so she takes.
Or at least you don't want to change queens. Oh, that check probably doesn't help because you need that bishop back home.
Yeah, and now Nina can just kind of tuck her king in there and make shape.
GF, and now I guess just queen f5. Was rook f5 better? Now f2 looks sort of chronically weak as well. So rook f5 looks quite attractive because if the f pawn takes on e5, there will be some rook g5 moments, or I don't know.
Yeah,
it does all look quite scary for white.
Nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, this is when you see these kind of games. That's why people want to play the Dutch, isn't it?
Yeah,
looks very attractive when it all works out. Well, it's just, I mean, it's only one tempo down from the birds, isn't it? Which I seem to remember somebody wrote an excellent pamphlet.
Yeah. I mean, but I like the birds. I like the birds. But the trouble was with the birds was trying to lose that tempo to get it into a proper Dutch.
Okay, so now is there already... what happened there? So I thought that after...
Oh, it's saying mate in 12 here.
Well, I'm looking at things to do with queen h3 and rook g8 in some order. If you go rook g8 first...
Rook g8 should played.
Then if king f1, I thought queen h3 check and rook takes f2 was winning immediately.
Yeah.
I think I'm right. Oh, yeah, and check. And, I mean, there may be other things, but rook takes f2 and then rook g2. Rook g8. Rook g2 check is going to be the end of the world.
Okay.
You don't even have to waste time taking the queen. You just give mate.
Checkmate. Yep.
Although taking the queen with mate in 2 is tempting as well.
Just for, to enjoy it.
Okay, so that's very... Oh, I like the way it flicked down to winning for white after we mated white.
Yeah. So this game's...
Okay, that looks very strong. I mean, maybe white could go... white had to try king h2, but yeah, pretty terrifying anyway. So this is what happened. She went check first. And rook g6.
And check.
And now she's taking on e5 and... Okay, now it's... I mean, white's kind of survived into an endgame. I thought black might have finished her off with a direct attack, but it's a very nice endgame, of course. Oh, Yeah, I mean, the only asset white really had in this position, I think, was black's king being potentially a little bit vulnerable. So for that purpose, it's just in principle wrong to change queens. You've got to keep the queens on and hope that king's going to be weak. I think after queen e5, it should be. Oh, I think she would have been better off maybe not taking and not driving the king to h3 so that she could perhaps take and somehow, I don't know, take and go g5 and king g7 or something. Not sure exactly. Now it's not. Now it's still very good, but it doesn't look quite so simple. That's a teeny bit passive. I was hoping she was going to be able to play. But maybe rook e4, king g5 was counterplay in some way. So king g7 is tidying nicely. Oh, I think she needed to stop rook e5 check, probably. Perhaps king f4, I don't know. Now it looks like black gets on the rook c5. Yeah, now you can see it's all coming up. And now black's tidied up the position, coordinated her pieces, and it's... I thought g5 check, but this is also going to be...
Yeah.
It's another way to come back and attack c4. Okay. She's keen to get this transformation, and it is very good.
It's going to be just the one pawn up.
Yeah, but it's a good pawn, and the king's kind of cut off.
Yeah.
And this bit she's doing very efficiently, I think, now.
White resigned.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way to stop king h2 and g2 as at all. And there's zero counterplay because the rook on a4 covers a7 as well, and it covers everything. Yeah, good stuff.
How are you doing for time, Peter? Are you okay?
I probably should go fairly soon, but
yes,
I'd quite like to check back on...
Let's check wood green.
Wood green and see how it's going,
yeah. So we have... Daniel Fernandez did go on and win that game.
Yeah, it looked very unpleasant for Marcus. Marcus doesn't look quite...
and Jonah... let's check Jonah's one.
Yeah. Is this really still the position?
Nope.
I was going to say, Jonah really went into the box if it is.
There we go.
That's a bit more like it. Okay. Why is black a piece? Oh, no, it's... No, black's not a bit. White, black's 2 pawns down. Okay, so, I mean...
Black's 2 pawns down.
It looks very comfortably winning. I mean, you could argue that black's done well to still be on the board, but it's 2 pawns and white's still got some attack. It's not... There's nothing to like here for black, I don't think.
Yeah, so
the knight hasn't got a sort of...
Exchange and then bring the knight back or something.
Majestic route out, but taking him knight f6 looks good to me.
Yeah.
King f5, you just got h4 if you want to. Oh, rook d5 might be nearly mating. Yeah, I mean... Oh, he's done it another way. He wants knight e5 check as well. That's a man who wants it all, but he's going to get it all, I think. There's nothing wrong with wanting it all if you're going to get it all. That's a good way of doing it too.
Okay. And then the game...
Knight d4 and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game we haven't seen yet is Ketty against Joe. It didn't work. This is Ketty against Joe.
Okay. That looks not great news for Ketty, I'm afraid.
So Lopez. And we're in this position. Ketty's white.
Yeah, I mean, she's 2 pawns down, and there could be some counterplay with the king coming to g5, and if her knight was better placed, but I think her knight's a little bit too far from the action for the counterplay to be able to take off at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't look very good for white to me. She's been such a classy player and clearly struggling a little bit to get her form at the moment. The first few rounds of this tournament, she was super solid, and I was thinking maybe she's finding that form at last, but it's not been easy.
Yeah,
I think Black's got different ways of doing this now. I mean, throwing in G3 at some point may be an option, but simply bringing the rook to the C file and rook C5 check also makes some kind of progress. Yeah, I mean, I think Black's going to win this one. It's just not going to be, there's still some small hope, but not very much, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at the scores on the doors. We have Ravi and David both on 5 out of 6.
Yeah. I think they deserved an afternoon off. They appear to have taken the Met Office's advice, not doing too much today where possible. But they both had, proper games this morning, and they won again. They were on 4.5 out of 5 each before this game.
Yeah.
Which is stunning. I mean, for me, Ravi was probably the favourite in this tournament. I've got a very high opinion of Ravi and his chess. But, David Fitzsimmons, for David Fitzsimmons, it's an astonishingly good result. He's, this is a level up from...
Yeah, look, plus 53 rating points, it's saying.
He must be winning a ton of rating points.
53.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Not bad, is it really? So, it's superb for him. And I can well understand that they decided to...
have a draw,
They played a hard game already this morning, and time to have a rest. 5 out of 6 is an absolutely stunning score for both of them.
3 games left, and I guess that's tomorrow and Tuesday, right? So they're gonna.
3 games in the tournament. Yeah, Zala was just drawn with Tim, by the way. We were thinking it was
right. Yes. Okay.
Possibly
great.
She had good chances of. She was a pawn up, and he'd sacked one, and Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a very interesting tournament. Lots of quite interesting, unusual, quirky games. Which I'd need to, I'd need to spend longer on them to ascertain whether they were really good or just a lot of fun. But they were definitely a lot of fun. And this is pretty, this kind of generation of English chess, the early 20s generation. This is pretty much showcasing the majority of them, isn't it? And it's really nice.
And actually, it's been nice seeing the juniors as well, the younger ones, because we've got
that's been really good.
So many promising juniors. It's really lovely. Yeah,
that's good.
All right, we're going to wind up now. We are. I think we're back tomorrow, aren't we, Peter? Around about lunch time in my lunch break from work.
Noble of you, Natasha.
Yeah. And so we'll be checking in again on the Green Invitational, and we're checking in on the juniors if we get a chance, but we might not get a chance just because of how the timings work out. But anyway, thank you everybody very much for watching, and hope to see you again very soon. Thanks for watching.
Yep, thanks everyone. Thanks Natasha too.
Thank you, Peter.
Hope to see you tomorrow.
Yes.